So a professional philosopher usually does research in fairly narrow areas of specialty. For example, there are philosophers of science, philosophers who do applied ethics. There's philosophers who work in consciousness and cognition, or moral phenomenology. There's many very deep and narrow areas of specialty, but all professional philosophers have been rigorously trained in the core foundational areas of philosophy, which are metaphysics, and this is the study of the nature of reality and the essence of what makes a thing what it is. So conceptual analysis is a big part of philosophy. Another core area of philosophy is epistemology, which is the study of theories of knowledge and trying to figure out what the reasons and justifications are for saying that we know something. Another core area of philosophy is value theory, and so that has to do with critically evaluating the normative standards of a thing, whether it's morality or, say, beauty or even science. So that's an important part of philosophy. And finally, logic. All professional philosophers know formal logic. So any specialty that a professional philosopher, an academic philosopher works in, they like to do their research in that area and contribute something to the pursuit of knowledge in that area. I think that as an undergraduate degree, an undergraduate major, philosophy is one of the best. And I have 3 reasons for saying that. The first is that philosophy, the study of philosophy, gives you the ability to ask the right questions, and that gives you then the skills to solve problems. Students that are good in philosophy are good critical thinkers. They know how to analyze problems, and they know how to take things apart. They know how to be open-minded and look for both sides of an argument and critically evaluate what people are saying. And then because of that skill, I think the second thing it has to offer is the ability to formulate your own worldview and do it in a way that allows you to modify it as you go through life, and once again be open-minded and try to seek the truth about things. And both of these first 2 areas, these skills that you develop, I think leads to the third benefit of studying philosophy, and that is philosophy majors are very employable, because employers want people who are critical thinkers and who know how to ask the right questions and know how to solve problems and are open-minded and know how to take things apart. And so the skills of philosophy are really transferable to many different areas of life. So my personal journey was probably a little unique. Actually, my husband and I owned a construction company back in the Midwest. We built residential homes, and this was back in the 90s, and we decided at one point we wanted to build a green home, use all environmentally friendly materials, and we found out very quickly how difficult that was to do in a number of different ways. And so that got me interested in environmental ethics. So I decided I would take a course at the university that I was living close to at the time. And I didn't even know that ethics was a part of philosophy. So I took a course, and then I took another one in philosophy, and then I took another one, and pretty soon, as they say, the philosophy bug had bitten, and I was hooked. And so one thing led to another. I got my bachelor's in philosophy, and then my master's in philosophy, and then I started to teach some courses, and then decided to go on for my PhD, and like they say, the rest is history, and I absolutely love it. But I did come at it a little bit later in life, and after I'd already been in business for a while. I think that possibly one of the reasons is because the word philosophy is often used in everyday vernacular just to mean opinion. So people say, well, what's your philosophy about that? And there's a very big difference between having an opinion that sometimes is very dogmatic. Some people have very, inflexible opinions, or they're not supported by good reasons that they've thought about. And so I think there's that problem. And then also I think philosophy just has this people think about philosophers sitting under trees staring up into the cosmos, wondering about the nature of the world. And that is part of philosophy, but that's really a narrow representation of what it is. It's so much more, and philosophers contribute in so many ways to really everyday practical things. I mean, philosophers of science are always upping the game, as it were, for professional scientists, asking questions about how they're going about the business of science. People in applied ethics are making contributions to medical ethics and animal ethics and environmental ethics and business ethics. And so the contributions that philosophers make are very broad and very practical, but I think people just have the misconception of philosophy. They associate it with a lot of the iconic philosophers like Aristotle and Plato, and that's good, but that's certainly and also Descartes' thinker, right? We always think philosophy is the thinker, so a lot of people think that that's all philosophers do, is just sit around and think about all these esoteric, meaningless and impractical things. To dispel that misconception, I think that a lot of good things are going on with students who are now studying philosophy. So the current social media blogs and different ways for undergraduates to communicate with each other is really important. And so across disciplines, more and more students who say are in the sciences or in other areas of the humanities and social sciences and liberal arts are understanding what philosophy is and how it can come to bear on their discipline. And so sharing different areas of study, I think, is going to be really important in the future to get the word out about what philosophy really is. I've been asked these questions before, and they're the hardest. They're the very hardest because there's so many philosophers that I love and so many books that I love. But as I've thought about this before, I would have to say my favorite philosopher was my dad. My dad was not a professional philosopher, and some of the best philosophers in the world are not. Albert Einstein is a good example. But my dad was a physicist, mathematician, and engineer. But what made him a good philosopher is that he had an empathy for people and sort of this natural understanding of people and nature and the cosmos. And he would ask questions that are very philosophical about the nature of reality and so forth. And mostly though, when he talked to people about these important topics, he would always listen to what they had to say, and always, he was very Socratic as well. And he was a good question asker. When I was a little girl and I would get in trouble, he would rarely lecture me. He would ask me questions that would sometimes just bring me to my knees in a crack of lightning of understanding that you get when people ask you the right questions, and that's what philosophers do. Now, of my professional philosophers, I guess I would have to say John Stuart Mill is one of my favorites. I think that not only did he work out, a pretty complex theory of morality, utilitarianism. And I'm not a card-carrying utilitarian, but I respect what Mill did because, once again, a big part of his philosophy was about understanding the human condition. So I like Mill. I think from the ancient period, everybody ought to read The Trial and Death of Socrates, Plato's works, the Euthyphro, the Crito, the Phaedo, and the Apology, because it's a great little treatise on, once again, on the nature of how humans get along in groups. I like, from the modern period, I like John Rawls. And once again, I don't completely subscribe to all of his political theory, but his theory of justice and the way that he works out the concept of fairness, I think is hugely important. And then I think the last sort of amateur philosopher that I'll mention is Henry David Thoreau. I think that everybody ought to read the works of Thoreau. There's 4 major papers. My 2 favorite are Civil Disobedience and Walden. But if you are interested in philosophy, the list of books never ends.